these aren't the only 5 by any means, right? Happy 5 Fact Friday. 5 Fact Friday. I'm Charlie Lambden, and it is 5 Fact Friday. I forgot I had that. I haven't used it for a while. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another 5 Fact Friday with me, Charlie Lambden. This is Moving Home with Charlie. Excuse me. It's got no milk in it. I really burnt myself. I was in a really grumpy, bad mood just before we went live. But that little, don't know why, that little 15-second intro has cheered me up. Why am I in a bad mood? Because I feel like I'm bashing my head against a brick wall every single day, every single week, every single month, as every day and week and month, new people enter the housing market, and they come to it knowing nothing, and they come to it full of all the preconceived notions that are why the housing market is in such a terrible state. Before I go into the 5 facts from today, because there will be accusations of, oh, Charlie, you're so negative and you're talking the market down, and you're doing... No, I'm not. House prices don't matter. Moving matters, right? The market will do what the market will do. People need to move. And when you talk the market up and when you make house prices too high and asking prices too high, people stop moving because they can't afford it. If people can afford it, they will move. So some people think that I'm trying to talk people out of moving. On the contrary, everything that I'm doing is designed to increase home moving transactions for movers and agents, because literally everyone benefits. The whole country benefits. The economy benefits. Social mobility benefits. Nothing I'm doing is trying to stop people moving house. Everything I'm doing is trying to help people move house, give people more confidence to move house. So when I present some of the information in the weekly housing market news, which isn't good news, it's because it's information that I would want to know if I was making a decision to buy a house. And unlike a lot of people, I don't just go, everything's fine all the time. Yes, it's always just buy, sell, buy. Everything's fine, because no one believes that shit. And that's why I try and get that point across to people in the industry. Stop pretending everything's fine and just tell the truth. This is what's good, this is what's bad. But what matters is the process of getting you moved. It doesn't matter what house price indices say. Up or down, sideways, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what I think your house is worth. It doesn't matter what you think your house is worth. It only matters what someone will pay for it. Similarly, if you're a buyer, it doesn't matter what you think the house is worth. It only matters if the seller's going to accept your offer. So why aren't more sellers accepting offers? Because seller expectations have been repeatedly, like, being pummeled again and again. The expectation is up, 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 record house prices up, everything's fine, everything's up, 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 up. And so sellers go, okay, well then it's not unreasonable to accept all 3 of the agents who've all overvalued my house using Rightmove's house price index, asking price index, to justify it. Oh, but someone over the road put their house on this price. Have they sold it? No, so they're asking too much. Anyway, rant over. God, 4 minutes of rant. Let's get into this. And then at the end of this video, I'm going to do 2 things, right? At the end of the 5 facts, and might even be 6, I'm going to show you a post I found on LinkedIn yesterday from an estate agent, which really spells out why you should never accept the conveyancer recommendations from large corporate agents. Never. Smaller agents, different, for reasons I'll explain. I'll come to the end. I'll show you the conversation that's between an agent and another agent who used to work for a corporate agent and complaining about how he was targeted on selling conveyancing more than selling houses, and how your money as a consumer, especially as a selling one, when the agent tells you to use, or a buyer, how much of the money you're paying to conveyancers is getting kicked back to the agent. Now, that's the way the world goes around. I'm not anti-referrals, but when they become grossly, massively over just too much, and when less than half of your money is going to the conveyancer, don't be surprised when the conveyancer doesn't have enough money to do the job properly and your deal falls through. I'll come on to that. And we'll have a little bit of a look at the UK's house price index that came out of the ONS this week. It's not one of the facts, but I will touch on it. Okie dokie, let's get into fact number one. Who do we have here? MA, hi guys, Super Ted, Conrad, Down to Mars. Awesome, Down to Mars says, hey Charlie, I got an offer accepted on my first home yesterday. Thanks for all the advice, which has greatly helped. That's what we love. Love to hear that. GGFR says, have I missed the slurp? Yes. Just for you. I've got to actually get on with the 5 facts, or you're all going to leave because like, when are you going to start talking about the facts, Charlie? I've lost it. I've lost what was on screen. I need to put it back up. No, I don't. Never mind. Let's just share the screen and get this going. So the first, these aren't in any particular order. Not in any particular order. But they are facts that affect the market, I think. You're free to disagree. I do need to get rid of that. There we go. So fact number one, at the beginning of the week, Angela Rayner scraps plans to limit social housing applications to longer-term British residents. So there was a Tory plan that was going to give a UK connection test to limit social housing to those resident for at least 10 years. Now, I'm not passing comment on or opinion on this move, simply to say that what it will do, because there is a massive shortage of social housing, it will mean greater pressure on the private renter sector and on rents as a result of this. And obviously this is an immigration topic. Immigration has a much bigger direct effect on rental prices than it does on sale prices. So that's fact number one. Fact number two, which is the headline fact for this week that I've used in the thumbnail to begin with. Dramatic rise for mortgage possession claims. And this wasn't reported anywhere else in the media. This is a website called Introducer Today. Dramatic rise for mortgage possession claims, government data. And I threw the whole lot here. Just to point out to you, I think what's worth seeing is this. So claims in Q2 2024, there were 5,300 claims for possession, which is up 34% on the same quarter last year. Now that's still relatively low. I mean, for the 5,343 people having their houses repossessed, that's a lot of people to have their house repossessed, and it's bad news. There's definitely been a delay in these figures starting to tick up because of the forbearance issues. But I thought it was interesting that the peak of mortgage possession claims in 2009, Q2 2009, was 26,000, right? So we're a long, long way below that, but they are rising. That's 34% up in a year. And I suspect we're going to see those continue to rise because, well, for reasons I'll come on to later about the employment market. Okay. Fact number three, this is the employment market. So this was a post that came out on X, and this is a chap called Viraj Patel, who's a foreign exchange trader, who did a screenshot, I think, of his Bloomberg screen. Monthly jobless claims in the UK rose to its highest level since 2009. The 3-month change is on a par with what we saw during the global financial crisis. Yes, there was a modest uptick in jobs, but a much bigger uptick in jobless, and there are major red flags in the UK labour market, right? This is just a foreign exchange trader. And look at this graph. Can you see that? I want to just actually make that really much bigger so you can really see it. So on this graph, ignoring that crazy spike that was COVID, back here you've got this spike. Can you see my mouse? I'm not sure if you can. 2008, 2009, there it is. There's the spike, right? And since then, this level 0, so this is showing whether it's positive or negative, the move, the monthly or quarterly move in jobless claimants, all right? And ignoring COVID, the last time it spiked that high was 2009. And look at that spike. It's 135,000, I believe, a spike of 135,000 claiming joblessness. Now, in the ONS data that was reported, it was mentioned, but it was kind of glossed over, and it wasn't really picked up on at all, because generally speaking, they always want to say, hey, it's not too bad, everything's okay. And they tend to gloss over the stuff that I think is worrying. And yes, there was a time. So let's have a look at it. So this is the ONS labour market overview for August 2024. Just so you can see, the release date was this week, 13th of August. And down here, where was it? Here we are. So they have this thing called the unemployment rate for people aged 16 and over, and it was 4.2%, and it decreased. So the unemployment rate decreased. But the unemployment rate is not the same as the number of people claiming unemployment. Go figure. The UK economic inactivity rate was largely unchanged in the quarter, but it's still 22%. That's 9 million people. And these are people who do not work, but do not claim unemployment benefit for whatever reason. Most of whom, there's like students, that kind of stuff, that's fine. But the number of people claiming sickness is very big, largely unchanged in the last quarter. But here we are. This is the thing that was just lost here. It didn't even have a subheading, and it wasn't picked up by any journalists. The UK claimant count for July increased on the month and on the year to 1.8 million, but it doesn't tell us where from. It's a bit difficult to pick apart as to what it actually means, but there are red flags in employment. And why is that relevant to housing? Because nothing affects the housing market, both prices and transactions, more than employment and wages. Yes, my friends, even more than interest rates, employment and wages, wage growth in particular, real wage growth, affects this. And there are many people who think that we are very close to a financial event that's going to dwarf the 2008 one. I remain open-minded. It would not surprise me if that is the case. There are people saying Q4 is when that's likely to happen this year, a bit of a global one. But at the same time, things can just sort of stumble on as they are without any big. There was a bit of a ripple in the stock market, wasn't there, last week? What we thought looked like a potential big stock market crash, but it kind of recovered itself. All things to bear in mind when you are contemplating moving home and whether or not your livelihood is likely to be impacted or not. Right, next one. And this is more evidence that overvaluing doesn't help anybody. Instruction to sold subject to contract time increases as vendors stick to their guns on price, causing transactions not to happen and losing money and slowing people's life down and moving on because the vendors believe that they're being realistic because their expectations have been mismanaged. To those of you who are selling your homes, congratulations, you've become realistic by definition. To those of you who can't sell your homes or are wondering why you're getting no offers and no viewings, it's because you're being unrealistic on the price. Let's just dig into this a little bit. It's interesting information. Ongoing vendor over-optimism on asking prices. Now, I actually have slight issue with this wording. It's not over-optimism. It's what they've been conditioned to expect. Yes, they're being optimistic, but why? It's ongoing overvaluation by agents, supported by Rightmove's asking price index, means properties are taking longer to find a buyer in every region. Ongoing overvaluing by agents, which is like financial self-harm anyway. And this is exactly what I am campaigning against with agents. This is what Best Agent Day is all about. You make more money faster if you don't overvalue. Oh, but Charlie, we don't win the instruction. There are ways around that. If overvaluing is the only way you can win business, you're not a good enough estate agent, or you haven't got the confidence to talk about how good you are. Are there people who won't go with you if you're honest on price when you're an honest estate agent? Yes, Does that matter? No, because they won't sell anyway, and you'll just be working for nothing and never get a fee because they've stuck to their guns on price and they're not selling. They're wasting everyone's time. Not their fault. It is not your fault. If you are a seller whose price expectations have been mismanaged, that's not your fault. That's not on you. But I'm here to try and give you a wake-up call. Ding, 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 wakey, wakey. The reason your expectations on price are so high is because all the agents told you it was worth that much, because they're all afraid you wouldn't instruct them otherwise, and because Rightmove tells you it is, and because house price indices, like one we're going to look at later, also make it look like everything's fine. All of which supports this vendor over optimism on asking prices. Meaning properties are taking longer to find a buyer in every UK region, reckons data analyst 20EA. So these guys do national property data for estate agents. They don't tend to publish it to the public. According to the firm's latest analysis, it takes an average of 72 days. Now, what in reality, the average, there is no average. There are people who are pricing sensibly, who are finding a buyer in under 28 days. And there's everyone else who's taking over 100 days. The average of those might be 72 days, and it's going up, meaning the problem's getting worse. But no one's doing it in 72 days. You're either pricing sensibly or you're not. If you're pricing sensibly, you're selling quickly because buyers want to buy houses. It's nothing to do with interest rates, right, guys. It's to do with affordability. So whether or not there are buyers, buyer demand, there's always buyer demand because people are always being born, getting married, getting divorced, having kids, dying, and all of these things happen whether we like it or not, and all of them have an impact on the housing market and create moving demand. Buyers don't disappear, they just can't afford the asking prices. But hang on, those were the prices a couple of years ago. Okay, but buyer situation has changed because of inflation, because mortgages cost more, they can now borrow less because of that, etc. So inner London is the slowest region, 86 days. Scotland is the fastest, 48 days. I'm surprised Scotland isn't faster at that, but with its system, but there we are. The overall instruction to completion time, on the other hand, has fallen slightly by 7% to 114 days. Well, that's a lot lower, so that we get different readouts on this. I think Rightmove's last readout was 150 days. And they're saying that the number of agreed sales was 16% higher than last year. Now, that's calendar year compared to calendar year, but I also got up this information. Because if 2024's transaction rate hadn't been higher than last year, we were in real trouble. And to give you something to measure it by, the record number of houses sold in 1 year in the UK was 1.6 million in 2007, from memory. Last tax year, so the year ended April the 5th, 2024, so 3 quarters of 2023 and 1 quarter of 2024, look at that. The total number of transactions was below 1 million, down 600,000 transactions from the peak. So you want to hope it's higher. So we're on track for so roughly the same number of transactions as the year before that. But more people want to move. We could be doing 1.6, even 2 million transactions a year if we remove the friction. And I'm telling you guys, overvaluing is the single biggest culprit of these transaction values being low. Okay? And even if all the agents valuing your home are saying the same thing, they're probably all overvaluing because there aren't 3 agents who are all going to be honest with you. There are typically 1 or 2 agents who will be honest with you about price. And what you should say as a seller is, I actually don't care what you think my house is worth. I care about how you're going to get competing buyers so that we find out what the market price for my house is. Because there is only the market price, right? I'll repeat it. As a seller, there's what you want, there's what the agent thinks, and there's what the market will pay. And the only one that matters is what the market will pay, which is why you need to understand how to bring your house to market in a way that you get competing buyers, because if you don't, you are underselling your home. Onwards. So so we had GDP figures out this week as well, and there was lots of the economy is growing strongly, 0.6%. By the way, I don't not believe the ONS figures. I just don't blindly believe them like everybody else seems to do. I think they are riddled with mistakes. I think it's the best we've got to go on, so it's worth looking at to see how it changes. But if you get into the detail, it's riddled with assumptions and mistakes and weightings and calculations and adjustments. And I'm not suggesting that there's any form. I don't think there's any deliberate manipulation of it. I think it's just a case of the optimism, the sort of that optimism bias people tend to have, especially when you're worried about your job, to make things sound better than they are. And the reason I've got this up on screen is because the real GDP per head is the factor most closely correlated with house price movements. And having been negative for about 2 years, it's starting to increase slightly, right? So in Q2, according to this, real GDP per head, which is a sort of prosperity measure per person, it's still lower than it was a year ago, but it's starting to improve. Okay, so that's good. So I'm not all bad news, am I? I'm looking at all of the things that affect housing market. Okay. Then we had inflation. And I thought to myself, they managed it well, didn't they? Oh, everyone's expecting inflation to go up. Tomorrow's figures are going to say inflation's gone up. Oh, phew, inflation's gone up, and not as much as we thought. So that's good. Yes, but it's gone up. It's not supposed to go up, is it? No, but it's not. It hasn't gone up as much as we thought. So that's good, Charlie. See, it's fine. It's good. It's okay. And it's up, and it's gone up. CPIH is up from 2.8 to 3.1. CPI is up from 2 to 2.2, and owner-occupying housing costs have now reached 7%, and they haven't stopped rising since 2020. And as an individual member of society, you are affected more by the owner-occupier housing inflation than you are by the other two measures. Okay, so that means that your pay rises of 4 or 5% are not keeping up with your house inflation, which is 7%. That's not house price inflation, that's house costs inflation, the costs of being an owner-occupier of a house. Now, I am not sitting here predicting inflation is going to go back up. I'm open to the fact that it could. It may well do. I'm also not predicting that it's going to go into deflation, although there are people saying that as well. I'm open-minded to that. I'm open to both possibilities, and I just don't have a strong feeling either way. My best interpretation of the situation right now is that we're kind of walking on a tightrope between the two, and it just depends what happens in the uncertain conflict areas of the world and all the global uncertainties that we've got. It's like it's going to go one way or the other. When it does, it's either going to go, oh no, inflation's gone way back up again, or it's going to go, oh no, we're in deflation. We'll see. We will see. Do we have any questions on this right now? GDFR, I did do the repossession data comparison. It's 5,000 versus 25,000, so we're way below 2008, 2009, but we're earlier in the process. I think the worst is yet to come. It's just what I think. Oh dear. Just looking at your comments. Thank you, Pero Malmstrom. That's very nice to read. You're the best, honest, fresh air online, head and shoulders above the smokescreen of the housing sector. Thank you. You're welcome. That's my job. And I'm just waiting for the housing sector to catch up with the fact that I'm actually trying to help housing and help the transactions, which helps everybody. Okay. I want to do what I promised, which is I want to just tell you the story about one of the biggest, this is another major contributing factor to housing transactions failing and taking so long. And if you are fed up with your house transaction taking long, there are lots of long list of reasons that can contribute to why it's taking a long time, but this is one of the biggest. It will be self-explanatory when I read it to you. So this is an estate agent I do not know and haven't spoken to. We've messaged on LinkedIn, but otherwise I don't know him. He's one of the few agents that's much more open and honest about the reality of the economy and the market, and doesn't just try and talk it up all the time. And this is what he posted yesterday on LinkedIn. Okay, hang on. Almost every issue we have with chains right now involve large estate agency firms that have taken referral fees over recommending excellent local solicitors or conveyancers. It's time that these big estate agency firms stopped commoditizing their clients, in other words, rinsing you for money, and started to make referrals in their clients, you, the seller's, best interests, not their own. And he goes on to say, do the hierarchy in large estate agency firms truly understand the damage they are doing by using factory conveyancing? What they mean by that is the cheap volume conveyancers. And right there below is a comment from someone that used to work at Countrywide saying, true story. Without the income from conveyancing and mortgage referrals, most of the corporates would have gone bust years ago. Please let that sink in if you are a seller. They're selling your house at a loss. They wouldn't be in business if they only survived on the fee they charge you for selling your house. Put it another way, they can't afford to do the work to sell your house unless they're rinsing you on conveyancing and mortgage referrals. So these are the guys who have the in-house mortgage brokers, and they pressure you into using them really highly, and also they pressure you to use the conveyancer they use. Now, I'm just going to cut straight to the chase, but so he goes on to say, for the UK's largest operator during my time there from 2013 to 2018, it was the largest single source of profit. They made more profit from conveyancing and mortgage referrals than they made from selling houses. Let that sink in. Now, that's a long conversation that goes on there, and it's fascinating. And other agents chime in about it and say they're not all bad, some are good, some are bad. It's a fascinating conversation. But come to this, right? Just the next day, the same agent posts this comment. And I want you to bear in mind how much you're being quoted for conveyancing, how much it costs, and then bear this in mind. So he says, rather than improving the system, panel managers, who are the people who sit between estate agents and conveyancers and dish out your work to whoever they want to dish out and take a cut of their own. Panel managers are the middlemen of middlemen. There is a certain job that they do, but rather than improving the system, panel managers and many conveyancers are diverting client monies to agents. Diverting client monies to agents. Diverting your money to agents in order to secure business. He, as an agency owner, says, I'm so glad we run a good business that does not rely on referral fees and only direct our clients to top-notch local law firms run and worked in by qualified, capable solicitors and conveyancers. And he's saying this in response to the fact that he'd just been approached by a panel manager who's paying £500 per referral. What this means is that the conveyancer you are paying, now let's just take £1,500, okay, as a made up number for how much you're paying for your conveyancing. Of that £1,500, there are disbursements, right? There's the property search pack and there's local searches and there's various bits and bobs that are not actual, the conveyancer charging you. They're charging you for what they call disbursements, out-of-pocket expenses. Some of which may or may not contain referral fees as well, but leave that to one side. So let's just say that they've got 500 quid of disbursements. And so their actual fee for doing the job, the conveyancing job for selling or buying your house, is £1,000. Of that £1,000, £500 is going to the agent and about another £200 is going to the panel manager. So £700 of the £1,000 you're paying is not going to the conveyancer that you're paying to do the job. They're getting about £300. They cannot do the job properly for that money. And it does not make sense that the introducer, the estate agent, is making more money for the introduction than the conveyancer is getting paid for doing the job, which is why. Now, I am not an advocate of banning referral fees at all. When it's done well and reasonably, it helps everybody. It's just a form of advertising. But when you are price gouged and rinsed, it starts to backfire, like it has in this example, where it's actually killing chains and causing transaction delays. Okay, so if you are going with the conveyancing firm that an agent's recommending you, don't be put off by the fact that they get a referral fee. That's okay, right? And I think referral fees of 10 to 15, maybe max 20% are reasonable, right? I mean, the movie industry, when they budget for a movie, 1/3 of that movie's budget is just for the marketing, the advertising to get people to go. That is what happens. If you don't have advertising, if you don't have a form of marketing, a source of business, then you don't get any business. So you have to pay for your business. One way you do it is through advertising. Another way you do it is through paying introductory referrals, and that's normal. If it's 10, 15, 20%, that's reasonable. When it's a total for the panel manager and the agent of 60 or 70% of what you are paying as a fee, the problem with that, never mind the ethics of it, the problem with it is it starts to affect the transactions because the conveyancers can't do the job at that price. They're understaffed with underqualified people not doing the job properly. That is the reason to ask what the referral fee is. Not because you want to make the agent feel guilty about what they're earning, okay? Because a reasonable introduction fee is perfectly reasonable. The law requires them to divulge this to you, by the way. They are legally obliged to disclose their referral income. Just like I do when you guys want to use the mortgage brokers I partner with or the conveyancing firm I partner with, right? They will tell you what they pay me if you use them. By the way, it's not 50% or anything like that. So I'm just trying to let you guys be informed so you can go out and make your decisions and make them with better information. Because if you're going to pay £1,000 or £2,000 to a conveyancer, you want to know that the conveyancer is getting the majority of that. Not all of it, but the majority of it. If the conveyancer is not getting the majority of it, you should say no. You should say no. You should say, I'm sorry. I would rather that my money went to a better quality conveyancing firm where they get to keep more of the money. I don't want to use an underpaid conveyancing firm to handle my transaction. This is really important, guys. It's really important. I hope everyone understands that. Now, okay, do we have any questions on that particular thing? Sean is asking, is the government bank mortgage assistance program slowing houses getting repossessed? Yes, it is. That's called the forbearance, and it definitely has had an effect. I think, but that effect's starting to wear off now. Empty Space says, yes, 34% repossession rise. The number isn't high, but the level and rate of change is huge. That's true. So it's 5,000 is the number in a quarter. I mean, that's 20,000 a year, people losing their homes. But compared to 2009, when it got to 26,000 in a quarter, which is 100,000 in a year. Right. I'm now going to go through just briefly the UK house price index from the ONS. But before I do, I want to ask you all a question, and I'd like you to answer it in the live chat if you're watching live, and the comments if you're watching it afterwards. And if you're listening to this on audio podcast, which you can always do, by the way, all of my live streams go on audio podcast on Spotify, Apple, anywhere you get your podcasts. Just look up Moving Home with Charlie, you'll find them. I really want to know, this is a genuine, sincere question. And I want every single one of you that's actually in the process of moving or trying to move to think about the answer to this question. What difference do the national average house price figures make to your decision when you're buying or selling an individual property? Another way of putting it is, why do you care? Why do we as a country lap up house price news, even though arguably it has close to zero impact on individual movers? In fact, it is a distraction from what you need to be knowing if you need to move, because the market does what the market does. And there's a different market for every different kind of property in every different part of the country. So I want everyone to think about, God, I spent a lot of time reading house price news. What's the point? Regional? Yes. Broken down by property? Absolutely. Local stuff happening? Definitely. National? You know, it's pointless. And I'm going to start phasing it out unless there's something major and unexpected. I'm not going to continue this relentless, repetitive going through house price indices month in, month out, when it doesn't actually achieve anything and it doesn't solve anyone's problem. It might be interesting, but I'm sick of it because it doesn't achieve anything. I will do so if it helps to show, if there is data within a house price index that actually helps to show and prove a phenomenon happening. For example, like the downsizing, which I told everyone 2 years ago, I told was happening. And everyone, no. Now it's a widely accepted phenomenon that it is, downsizing is happening. If there's an actual point of showing you in a way that's valuable to your move, I'll do it. But just going through like I'm about to do, I'm going to try and pick out the interesting parts of it. House price index. And tell me at the end of this, right? At the end of going through this week's UK ONS Land Registry derived house price index, tell me, I really want to know if it's changed anything for any single one of you in terms of actually having a material impact on your move, or does it help you with your move? Because my thesis is that all these things do is, intentionally or not intentionally, they all support or make worse the problem of overvaluing. All of them. Right? And let's just start right here. And I'm going to probably get a bit ranty when I do this. Headline statistics for June 2024. The average price of a property in the UK was £288,000. I'll break this one down for you first of all, right? So this is for completions registered at the Land Registry in June 2024. That were for transactions that happened 4 or 5 months before that. So January transactions. And I haven't looked at the exact number, but typically it's based on a sample size of only around 10%. That's okay, but it's not the whole market. So what a lot of people assume the first time they see this is, oh, right, that's the average price of every property that's sold in June 2024. No, it's not. Now, if you bother to go, and don't do it because you'll just fall asleep. If you bother to go and look into the details here, what they call a property, right, where it says a property there, in the UK, includes England, Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland, number one. And number two, it is a fictional, notional, weird house that comprises of a flat, a terraced house, a semi-detached house, and a detached house. That's what they mean by a property. It's this meld. It's not any one of those four things. And all four of those things are doing different things from that number that's on the screen there, right? As I will show you now. They're all different. And therefore, this number here, which is what hits the headlines, is useless. It's not true for anyone. It may or may not be true. And again, it isn't an average. That's the other massive misnomer here. It is not an average, right? In the mathematical term of property, it is not an average. It is a hedonically regressed, mixed, weight adjusted, manipulated, twisted thing that a group of people have decided is how we will consume our national house price data. It's not an average of any kind. And there are people out there showing that there's a difference between the true mathematical averages and what these guys are reporting. Okay. But let's just, because I basically want you to disregard this. They do have, and I don't have a link to it right now, they do have a much more helpful regional house price reporting tool. They do. I'm actually going to see if I can find it because it really is brilliant. ONS, it's Gov, isn't it? Gov UK regional house price reporting tool. I can't find it. I'm not going to waste time now. I will find it. There is one, and that is useful. So I'm not just hating on the government, on the land registry, and on Gov and on the ONS. I'm saying that averages in newspaper headlines are totally unhelpful because they're not true for anyone. And when this says that house prices in the UK, or the annual price change for a property in the UK is 2.7%, again, this is a blunt, inaccurate, weird index figure. It's not actually an average. It's the percentage change in the index figure that they've got, right, based on all kinds of stuff, including their small sample size. But the monthly price change for a property in the UK has always gone up 0.5% in a month. Way, that's like £1,000 or £2,000. Woohoo! Okay, let's dig down to this, okay? It's a provisional estimate. It's different between the four countries. England, 2.4%. Wales, 1.8%. So neither of those are 2.7%. Scotland, 4.3%. So they're understating for Scotland. And Northern Ireland, 6.4%. So there are people in Northern Ireland reading 2.7% and going, oh, 2.7%, that's not very much. No, it's not. It's because it's 6.4. It isn't 2.7% in any of those four countries. Let's keep going. And seasonally adjusted, non-seasonally adjusted basis, house prices increased by 0.5% between May and June. Now, again, this is based on the tiny sample that they've had registered and is for properties that actually had their price agreed 4 or 5 months earlier. So January, basically. They refer to the UK resident, the RICS report, which I covered in a video last week. I'm not quite sure why they do that because it doesn't have any price data in it. Okay, so they're saying transaction volumes are 8% higher than a year ago. Okay, now transactions. This comes from HMRC, and that's much more reliable because it's based on stamp duty payments, which happen in real time, and the HMRC tracks those in real time. Okay. Between May and June, transactions decreased by 0.6%. Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me because that's because of the June was the election month. Okay. But price changes. So this breaks the countries down, and this is based on annual percentage changes, not actual prices. All right. And they're showing that, yes, it got down at the bottom of 2023 is where price growth was the slowest, and then it's gone up since then. It's then broken down. Look, England, it's regions here. It's breaking them all down by regions. 1.8, 1.6. Look, not a single one of those is 2.7%. So just ignore the average stuff. Go and look at the regional stuff. And if you live in the northwest of England, for example, and you see, oh, house prices have gone up 3.7% annually and 0.3% in a month, as is saying there, again, no. Because it'll be different for detached houses, different for semis, different for terrace, different for flats. It's an average of all of those things on a small sample size. as they actually show down here when you go further down. Oh, look, here we go, right? Detached, 2.8% up on the year. I think that's optimistic. But again, this is using a figure where, it doesn't, the average detached house is £440,000. It's saying. Now, that I know is downsizing territory for a lot of larger downsizers. Semis are up 4%, terraced properties are up 3%. But again, that's across all 4 countries, remember. It won't be that amount in any of those 4 countries. Flats or maisonettes are only up 0.5%, which means that in England and Wales, they'll be down. In Scotland, Northern Ireland, they'll be up. But when you average all of that out, it's 2.7%. A meaningless, useless, unhelpful, pointless, waste of time number. And my frustration with it is that how it's used in all of the headlines, and that most people who don't know everything I've just said go, oh, okay, must be true. Just innocently and naively, that's what people think. And it leads to people being overpriced and overvalued. Now, there was one other graph done here that I thought was really interesting to look at. What are these transaction volumes? Yeah, sales volumes, right? Okay, that's not what I wanted to show you though. What I wanted to show you was, yeah. So this is bad news. Sales volumes by country, all right? 2021. I think this is for a quarter. But look, it's just gone down, 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 down. This is really bad for social mobility. It's bad for the economy. It's bad for the industry. It's bad for moving. It makes moving harder. It takes longer. And overvaluing is the number one culprit for those transaction volumes falling. So if you're an estate agent or a mortgage broker feeling the pinch, I ask you this. Does it help you to be over optimistic about house prices, or does it cost you transactions? It's a mathematically verifiable answer to this. The market does what the market does. You should focus on educating movers about the process of changing. Right, this is not the graph I wanted to show you. The one I really wanted to show you was this one. England housing transactions. So this is a graph showing the actual number of transactions at all these different price bands. Okay, I need to get this big on the screen so you can see it properly. Okay. Let's do that. I know you can't see that very much, but so below 50,000, it's basically inconsequential. And look where the bulk of them is, right? The bulk of transactions, the massive bulk of transactions is between 100,000, that one there, right? And 325,000, roughly. But this long tail of high values, which you don't have at the bottom, is what skews the averages, okay? Which is why on Best Agent, we show both the median and the average, because the median is the most typical price. It's what people think of when they hear the word average, but it's not. When you hear the word average being used, it's not average. When you hear the word average, when most people hear the word average being used, they think that means typical. It's not. The median is the typical. So look at this, right? The median asking price of properties selling at the moment, showing as under offer on the internet, is still £295,000, and that has not changed. I'm coming on to some good news in a minute, by the way. That has not changed for some months now. Okay, the average price is £60,000 higher than that because of that long tail of high value transactions that pulls the average figure up. All right. And the median asking price, look at this. I mean, this just spells it out for anyone. Look at the price difference between what's selling and what's not. That's what's selling. That's what's not. Not because there aren't buyers there, but because the buyers can't afford or don't want to pay that price. They want to pay that price. Indicatively, I'm saying, not literally, of course. And why is this good news? Why have I said it's good news that there's been no change in this median price of sale agreed? Again, that's across all. This is England only. That's across all property types, but just in England. I will explain why that's good news. A couple of years ago, when I was being at my most bearish and negative about what I thought house prices were going to do, someone said to me, what would be the optimum scenario for house prices to correct with the minimum level of pain, but the maximum benefit for affordability? And I said at the time, this is a good 18 months to 2 years ago, I said, the best case scenario for an adjustment with the least amount of pain would be if house prices flatlined nominally, whilst inflation is high and wage inflation is high. So people who own their houses don't feel like they're losing money. They don't feel like house prices are falling. And the buyer's affordability, because it's all about wage to house price ratio, the wage to house price ratio improves and improves and improves and improves. That's what's actually happening at the moment. And that's what's been happening for about 18 months. That is good news. Now, that's what's happening overall. But unfortunately, at the higher end of the market, prices have come down. Regional variations, yes, but especially in the south of the country, the above £1 million market is really struggling, and a lot of stuff has had big reductions on it. There's no data for this. The ONS doesn't report on that. So that's the other reason. That the other bit of good news is this is arguably the best time for upsizing that there has been in decades. If you are an upsizer, if you are fortunate enough to be in the position of upsizing, happy days, happy days, because the properties you're upsizing to are coming down in price faster or not coming down in price. They're certainly not rising in price, whilst the house you're in, its house price is not falling as much or is rising. Even some areas, first time buy properties are rising in price. So this is why I always say, if you need and want a home and you found one you can afford to buy, always buy now. Just don't overpay. What does overpaying mean? It's different for everybody. It depends on your financial circumstances. To give you an extreme example, someone with a 95% mortgage buying a house that they want to move out of in the next 2 to 5 years and being negotiated into overpaying for that house, as in paying in a bidding scenario, they've paid the top whack price, with a job in a shaky industry, is overpaying, when someone else who's buying a third house for their kid with cash because they've got loads of money and their kid's going to be staying there indefinitely is paying the same price, they're not overpaying. Do you see what I'm saying? Because it's not going to affect what happens to house prices, won't affect the latter example, but the first example, if house prices come down, then they will be in negative equity and unable to sell, and that will hamstring their life. So overpaying is not about what the price is for the house. Overpaying means what price you're paying in relation to your personal circumstances, not just financial circumstances, whether or not you need to move soon, how long you plan to stay for, whether or not being there gives you a unique advantage in terms of being closer to family, for example, or closer to work, reducing your commuting costs, reducing all of these things have different value. A property's location has different values to different people depending on where they work, where their family is, what stage of their life they're at. Okay, so this is why it's true to say that a house is worth whatever somebody will pay for it, because it's worth different amounts to different people. So not overpaying is completely subjective. It has nothing to do with the price of the house, which is why you should only ever offer the maximum amount you are comfortable to offer given your circumstances, not just your financial circumstances, your employment, your financial situation, your likelihood of moving or not, your potential family changes, all those kind of things. Right. Guys, this is supposed to be a quick video and it hasn't been. Thanks for watching. I've got to go. Remember, if I can help you, go to my website, mhwc.co.uk. In the link in the description below, I've linked to the first time buyer offer email template and the cash buyer offer email template. Those are proving very, very popular. And those links have got all the information you need, the text to copy and paste into your email, a link to the video explaining it. And I do intend to do the same thing for sellers soon. I'm going to be talking about suggested terms of business to ask for from your agent. I'm going to be talking about all kinds of stuff to help sellers in the same way that I've been helping buyers. If you need to, and if you want to, you can book a half an hour or 1 hour a video call with me on my website. Look for the button. And if you need a conveyancer and you can't find a good one, I work exclusively with one firm who are outstanding. You can find those guys on my website, and the same with my mortgage brokers. You need a whole of market independent mortgage broker you can trust. I trust the two guys I've been working with for 2 years now, trust them implicitly, and they've been fantastic. So if you can't find someone you trust, and if you trust my recommendation, I recommend you talk to my mortgage brokers. I recommend you talk to my conveyancers. If you're a seller, you need your conveyancer before you choose your agent. And if you're a buyer, you need your mortgage broker, your decision in principle, and your conveyancing before you make an offer. Okay? Be prepared. Luck favors the prepared. Sorry, I haven't got any more time to answer your questions and comments and react to these. But thanks for watching, everybody.